It was July 20, 1969 when Neil Armstrong put his feet on the moon for the first time in human history. But after 50 years, NASA will go again on the moon, and this time they decide to build a permanent base on moon. But the question is, why NASA want to make a permanent base on moon, and how human will survive for a long period of time? Because in 1969, astronauts stay almost only 3 days on moon. These are the questions that we are going to answer in this video. Now I welcome to the Extra Vision videos. NASA is developing a lunar gateway. Lunar gateway is a small space station that will orbit the moon and serve as a hub for the future missions to the lunar surface. It will provide a living quarter for the astronauts as well as platform for the science experiments and the technology demonstrations. In the first phase of the plan is to launch an uncrewed mission called Artemis 1, which will involve the launch of the Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft. This is basically a test drive how human will go and come back to Earth. The second phase involves sending a crewed mission called Artemis 2 to orbit moon. This mission will test the spacecraft system and demonstrate NASA's ability to operate in deep space. The third phase involves sending a crewed mission called Artemis 3 to land on the moon. This mission will include a first woman and the next man to set foot on the lunar space. Basically, the Artemis 3 mission will use a lunar gateway as a small space station in orbit around the moon as a staging point for the lunar lander. The lunar gateway will serve as a command center for the mission, providing communication, life support and docking service for the lunar lander. The lunar lander will be a 3-part spacecraft consisting of the ascent vehicle, descent vehicle and a transfer vehicle. The descent vehicle will carry 2 astronauts to the surface of the moon, while the ascent vehicle will return them to the lunar gateway. The transfer vehicle will provide propulsion and navigation for the entire spacecraft. Once in lunar orbit, the lunar lander will detach from the transfer vehicle and begin its descent to the lunar surface. The descent vehicle will use combination of rocket engines and the thruster to slow down its descent and land softly on the surface of the moon. The lunar lander will land in a region near the south pole of the moon, which is targeted for the Artemis program. This region is of particular interest to scientists as it contains water ice which can support human life on the moon. During the mission, they will also set up equipment to support future missions and prepare for the establishment of the permanent lunar base. After the mission is completed, ascent vehicle will lift off from the lunar surface and dock with the transfer vehicle. The astronauts will return to the lunar gateway. Now the question is how NASA will build a base on moon. The base will be constructed using robotic labor. Robots will be used to prepare the site and to construct the basic infrastructure such as landing pad, power system and life support system. The lunar base will be designed to support long-duration mission with the ultimate goal of establishing a sustainable human presence on moon. After establishing the base on moon, the question becomes what they will eat and from where they will get energy or electricity. One possible solution for growing food on the moon is the use of hydroponic system, which allow plants to grow in nutrient-rich solution instead of soil. This method can be especially useful in environment which soil quality is poor or non-existent, as is the case on the moon. Another option is to bring meat from Earth, which would need to be carefully chosen for their nutritional value and the shelf life. In addition, food made from the synthetic ingredients could also be an option, providing reliable source of nutrition that can be manufactured on site using specialized equipment. NASA also need a lot of energy or electricity to run the moon base. NASA has proposed a useful nuclear energy for powering the moon base. NASA plans to use a small fusion reactors such as kilopower to generate electricity on the moon. The kilopower reactor uses uranium-235 as a fuel and convert the heat produced by the nuclear fusion process into electricity using Stirling engines. The kilopower reactor is designed to generate up to 10 kilowatts of electrical power, enough to power a small lunar outpost. The reactor can operate for up to 15 years and can easily transport it to the moon using rockets. One of the main advantages of using nuclear energy is that it provides a constant and reliable source of power. Regardless of the time of day or weather conditions, this is very important for the moon base, where solar power may not be available for extended period due to the moon's day-night cycle. Now the main question comes is why NASA want to build the moon base? A permanent moon base could serve as a hub for the scientific research and exploration, provide unique platform for studying the moon's geology, resources and potential for human habitation. Establishing a permanent presence on the moon would give a country a strategic advantage in space exploration, technological innovation and potentially in international politics. The most important thing why NASA want to build a moon base because of his future moon to Mars mission. NASA's plans to use moon as a base to go on Mars. One of the biggest challenge in traveling to Mars is amount of fuel needed to launch a spacecraft from Earth's surface and get it on trajectory to Mars. However, if we can find a way to generate fuel on the moon, we can greatly reduce the amount of fuel needed to launch a spacecraft from moon's surface and get it on a trajectory to Mars. One way to generate fuel on the moon by mining its resources, especially from the lunar regolith. The regolith is made up of various minerals including iron, aluminium, silicon and titanium, which can be extracted and processed to produce oxygen, water and rocket propellant. By generating fuel on the moon, we can create a gas station in space where spacecraft can stop and refuel on their way to Mars instead of carrying all the fuels they need from Earth. Another way that moon base can help us to go on Mars with less fuel is providing a testing ground for technologies that will be used in Mars mission. Moonbase can serve as a testing ground for the life support system, habitats, communication system, and rovers. By testing and refining these technologies on the moon, we can ensure they are ready for use on Mars mission, which will require even more advanced and reliable system. Moonbase can also serve as a training ground for the astronauts who will go on Mars. The experience of living and working on the moon will prepare astronauts for the challenges they will face on Mars. And this was all about moon base, how and why human want to build a moon base and how human will survive on moon.